Welcome to Parallax. Parallax, the construction amidst eternal decay. Parallax, the portal to the edge of chaos. Parallax, poem and provocation.
So welcome, Fanny, to Parallax Podcast. We're here to talk about your course, Life Force Leadership, Eros, Clarity and Action in the Digital Age. So perhaps you could introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about, what's behind, what's the motivation, what's this course all about?
Sure. So I have always been interested in leadership my whole life. I studied engineering and did a master's in management. And during my university studies, I founded two organizations and got really interested in like this new paradigm of like decentralized network-based leadership, basically like the leadership and business paradigm made possible through the internet and this paradigm shift that we're in. And 8 years ago, I was introduced to a very like tantric perspective on feminine leadership. And I, before that, wasn't thinking that much about men, women, gender. I mean, apart from like the quite common, I'm from Sweden, and the quite common like gender is only a social construct discourse that I had around me. And I also, I studied engineering. I worked as a management consulting. I was a lot like in very masculine environments, almost only had male friends, was very much in my masculine as well. And I was invited to this course at the time called Divine Eros and Pussy Power. And now it's called Awakening Feminine Leadership. And I don't know why, but for some reason I said yes. And this course really touched me to the core, and it awakened my feminine, both awakened, but also made me understand what the true feminine is to me. And when I had this deep awakening, I just had this deep sense that this feminine energy, this feminine eros, this life force, this power that I'm feeling through my body, both just intuitively feeling it in my body, but also seeing how men in the masculine were showing up differently as I embodied this feminine eros and power. So both those two things, and also how I invited like all my female friends to also join. It was Lovisa Alsen's course, Awakening Feminine Leadership, and just seeing this like epic transformation in so many women around me. And all of this already then, like I just got this huge embodied intuitive feeling that like, fuck, like this is what's missing, like, and this is so important and so needed to be able to really step into this this paradigm, or to succeed with all these like fancy flashy theories about decentralized organizing and network-based leadership and all those things. And I didn't understand it cognitively then, but so like I had just had this huge embodied knowing, and then like I've been really diving into it and dedicating my life to it the past 8 years. And and basically I see like more and more sources and people who've also gone deep into this work point to the same arc of how the feminine has been lost and distorted, and thus how also the masculine has been distorted. And this course is about my experience of what the true feminine is, how to collaborate and call the masculine in, and how to collaborate with the masculine, and also kind of sharing this arc, because to me it gives a lot of light on really understanding what the true feminine is, if we also see how it got distorted kind of, and then also from that kind of really based on seeing both the lack, but also like the epic collaboration that is possible when men and women come into right relationship with each other, like working as a management consultant and also as in the management team of big companies, and bringing this out, the masculine and feminine into right relationship.
Can I stop and ask
Yeah.
a question here? Okay,
Yes.
so a couple of things are coming to my mind when you were talking. In our circles and certain people I know and let's say in the past few years, this word phallus has become very big. So people are talking about the phallus, right, as being important,
Yeah.
right? And you said the name of your course was Pussy Power. So it's kind of like I feel like I'm asking you a vulgar question in a way, but it's not. What is that? What is pussy power? You know?
So, um, together with Louisa, we've developed a frame where we talk about what pussy power is. There's three awakenings for the feminine. So there's the Eros awakening and the erotic intelligence, and this is the power of the feminine's ability to become life force, to embody life force, to when a woman has this initiation and starts connecting to her sexual center and like the life force is flowing through her, she becomes this magnet, like she awakens people around her. She becomes like a gravitational field. So it's this
Mhm.
power, it's the power of seduction, but like true sacred seduction.
So sorry, that just the last part of my question would be like, how does that differ from phallic power, for
Yeah.
instance? Yeah.
Okay, so there's the erotic intelligence, and then there's the power awakening, the natural intelligence. Um, so maybe, I mean, there's so many. Okay, maybe I'll go in this way. So there's a lot of talk about the phallus and the phallic gaze, right?
Mhm.
For example, from Bard and Söderqvist work. So the theory behind that is that we all come from the Great Mother, and then we are born into this world, and we have this attachment to Mother. And then the idea of the phallic gaze is that it's the phallic gaze that helps us step away from Mother, from like the comfort and safety of Mother, and actually step into the world and become adults, and find our
Mhm.
archetype and find what we're here to do. And that this phallic gaze is split between this will to intelligence, which is the priest leader, and the will to transcendence, which is the chief. And it's basically the will to like to build wisdom and knowledge, and the will to basically, create a better world than previous generations, protect and provide in a better way to create more abundance, to create, yeah, more prosperity, to create expansion for the tribe.
Mhm.
So that's the phallic gaze. And then and there's been a lot of depth going into that and into the deep web, and I find it super fascinating. But then there's also the question then to talk about the chief, the priest, and the matriarch, right? So the question is like, what is this feminine power if there's these two masculine forces or power that are needed?
Well,
And
let's slow down a bit and
yep.
like explain that to people. So the masculine power is the chief and the priest, right?
Hmm.
So the priest is, let's say, the intellectual power, and then the warrior, the chief is in charge of, let's say, action,
Yeah.
doing shit.
So it's the clarity and action part.
Clarity and action in the masculine realm, and that's how men really need a project. They need to do stuff to feel that they're really men, you know.
Yes.
And I don't know how can what can we say about women in that
Yes.
respect? So we have the matriarch. So we only have the
Yeah.
matriarch. What's the matriarch, and what's her role in this formulation?
So to understand this, just briefly about, I mean, just a couple of sentences about this distortion. So as society evolved, we went from only living in single tribes to start organizing in several tribes, and we had to have this kind of social structure, some kind of societal glue that kept tribes together beyond the loyalty of your tribe. And there was this social structure that emerged with the chief, the priest, and the matriarch. And what then happened was that a lot of philosophers in religion that got tempted by the idea that you don't actually have to prove yourself. You don't have to do the phallic, you don't have to, assert yourself to become adult. Rather, there's this very boyish religions and philosophies where you don't have to become adult. You can, and this is where we see
This
this.
is where our culture is at right now, right?
Exactly, and this is where we see
Consumer
this.
culture.
But the important thing, you can really look at our relationship to the feminine. So what happens to the feminine in this, in a constructive power dynamic between the chief, the priest, and the matriarch, the matriarchal, I call it, I don't know if that's the name that I'm going to go for, but like the matriarchal appraisal. If we have the phallic gaze and the matriarchal appraisal, what the matriarchal appraisal does, it's not the mother, it's a feminine leader in society who is the one who both keeps, the power, or keeps the chief and the priest in check with each other, and also is the one who kind of approves, like has the priest leaned in enough, has the chief and especially the chief, like has the chief protected and provided enough, so that he is granted access to the feminine Eros.
So how would that work? Like, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not interrupting, but I want to get this, bring this down to earth a little bit. Like, how would that work in the case of, for example, a business, or, because we're talking about leadership,
Yeah.
and what does that look like, right? I mean, the theory is beautiful.
Yeah.
What does it look like in the real world?
But yeah, so just to finish, like,
Okay, sorry.
because what is, because there's something about the phallic gaze, and then there's this matriarchal approval, but then there's also the seduction of Eros. So I want to complement the phallic gaze with the matriarchal approval and the seduction of Eros, because this is what is missing often, that, like, what are the men protecting and providing for? Like, what are they building wisdom for? They're building it to feel that they've lived a purposeful and alive life, and they're building it to reach God. But actually, I think they're building it to reach the goddess, and it's the matriarchal appraisal that is the one that defines, like, have you done a good enough job so that you're worthy of meeting the goddess? And the
Got
point
it.
is to meet the goddess. It's, I mean, the female sexuality, yes, it is reproduction, but it is also like this seduction, this sacred seduction of men to do their fucking best in the world, to be the best men. And what happened in this distortion, when these boys, these men didn't want to have to do the work, they made the mother, instead of like the really fierce matriarch and the really seductive feminine. So they took away the erotic intelligence, the natural intelligence that I was talking
Yeah.
about, this power, fierce feminine, and this sexual feminine, and made her into the Virgin Mary Mother. The
Yeah.
unconditional love of the mother. Because if you
Right.
always have unconditional love of the mother, then you don't have to make an effort, then you don't have to become an adult because you'll just always be loved.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to,
Got it.
like, lay that out. So, but actually, this is something that I've put together afterwards. What came to me first was, like you said, just seeing like how fucking amazing it works in a leadership team, when the true feminine is present. So what happens? So in a leadership context, I see then, so there's, I call it the holding masculine, the creating masculine. The holding masculine is masculine that creates clarity, and the creating masculine is masculine that puts it into action.
Mhm.
And in a leadership context, the feminine is first in the erotic intelligence. And this is the feminine ability to really tap into, like, what is it that wants to come alive? Like, where is the aliveness here? It, like,
Mm.
infuses aliveness and creativity, and not creativity and, like, let's design a beautiful thing, like creativity and, like, oh, like fuck, I want to be a part of this. It, like, the kind of the life force energy that, like, makes you more alive and open. And then together with the holding masculine, when this life force of the feminine, erotic intelligence of the feminine is met with this like stable consciousness, that's like from Shakti Tantra, like the
Yeah.
power and the consciousness of the feminine and the masculine, then direction is created. And the holding masculine in this has this responsibility of creating like a clear direction, so that then the creating masculine can act on
So
this.
what I like about this, can I just tell you what I
Yeah.
like about this? Because usually you were talking, when we talk about the masculine, we're talking about the extroverted guy, who does stuff. But the holding masculine is a nice concept, because I think often masculinity there is something like it's not acting, right? It's not acting with impulse. It's
Yeah.
containing all that energy, that
Yeah.
phallic energy, without actually being seduced by it. So it's kind of, the seduction is there, but the really strong man is able to hold that without being seduced by the mother and becoming this little boy who's trying to please the mother all the time,
Yeah.
which could happen in an office situation. I've seen it.
Yeah.
A bunch of guys are just trying to please some lady in the office, and
Yeah.
they lose their
Yeah.
holding masculine, so to
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
And there's two things. There's one thing of like one projecting the mother onto the feminine,
Yeah.
but then there's also projecting the whore onto the feminine.
Right.
So there's either thing. So, and I think that's actually more common. So the erotic intelligence collaborates with the holding masculine, and then when you go into action, it's the natural intelligence of the feminine, like this fierce, powerful feminine that just makes the creating masculine like step up and shape up and really do his kind of more this approval feminine. And
Hmm.
it's more common that the creating masculine projects the mother onto the natural intelligence of the feminine and the whore onto the erotic intelligence of the feminine.
Right.
And when they project the whore, they haven't done their own work of being able to hold and contain their own sexual energy. So as soon as a seductive woman comes along, they're just like, ugh, lose themselves. And that means they haven't done the work and they're not ready to meet the goddess yet.
Yeah, and they get fooled and trapped
Yeah,
and destroyed usually
yeah.
for a while, and then until they kind of figure out the game, right?
And this is exactly why we had philosophy and religion that wanted to make the natural intelligence of the mother just this unconditional love, so you don't actually have to work to get her approval, and to just make the erotic intelligence of the feminine sin and dangerous, so that you don't have to do the work of actually containing your own sexual energy to be able to meet women as adult. Then let's just make them bad instead. Then yeah,
Great. Well, then the next question would be, what is the work? What do we do, to become leaders in that regard?
yeah,
Like, I guess the way you're defining leadership is the person who's, on the one hand, not seduced by the whorishness, right?
yeah.
Of this consumer
I mean,
society, and,
inspired
and,
and
and what it's
deeply
trying to sell
drawn
you,
to.
and also is not infantilized by the ease of the unconditional mother who's giving you a welfare check, or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Or, the nagging mother is also, I see this tendency
Mm,
so much in the business world, where either the men expect unconsciously to either be this unconditional love, or they're just like triggered by, the nagging HR department, and then they become boys, and the
mhm,
women
mhm.
aren't in their power either. It's not that there's the true feminine there for the men
Yeah,
to relate to either. I
yeah.
just wanted to say one thing that you said, that men shouldn't be seduced by the erotic intelligence. And I really want to reclaim the word seduction. I think seduction is the most sacred thing. I know what you mean, but it's like
Mhm.
they should be seduced. That's the whole point. Like we really need the seduction of
Yeah.
Eros for humanity not to like fucking burn up the planet.
Mhm.
But it's a sacred seduction, and it's not this. They shouldn't be boyishly just distracted and just become their dick.
Yeah, well, I think men can be seducers as well, and that we should celebrate that in a way, the right kind of seduction.
Yeah,
Which again, it's not a blind seduction it's a conscious seduction you're talking about, right? There's
because
something conscious about it.
yeah,
It's not because, seduction tends to think you're blind and you fall into something, but it's not. But I think the kind of seduction you're talking about is when you're responding to something powerful,
life force.
a life force,
Yeah,
and an eros, and a meaning, and
yeah.
rather than you're just wanting to release your tension
Yeah.
of existence.
And if you look at this and then go back to the business world and look at the paradigm shift we're in, and look at what is the attention, the attention network society. It's seduction. It's true seduction. That's going to be the companies who succeed are going to be the ones who succeed with true seduction, who make you feel drawn to the brand, who it feels authentic. It makes you feel alive. It makes you feel better about yourself. It gives you purpose in life. Whereas like sensationalism is this crappy manipulation like where it's just to get the fast kicks.
Like Coca-Cola versus, I don't know, some other company that's,
Exactly. And that's why,
constructing something beautiful or.
yeah, and
Mhm.
that's why I find it so powerful that the feminine leadership I'm talking about in the business world is not some kind of like underdog perspective of like, oh, please, mighty men, let us be part of this. It's like to succeed in the digital age, to succeed in attention, like we really need the erotic intelligence of the feminine. And we
Yeah.
need the masculine, like we need the right relationship. The companies that are going to be able to become these like really epic nodes in the network society are the ones that have this right relationship between the feminine and the masculine powers.
Okay, so again, let's bring this down to like practicality and what you see in companies, in leaders in the world today, because there's powerful kind of in Silicon Valley there seems, or in the tech bro world, there seems to be a lot of egghead dudes. You know, they're some of them are very powerful, but there's a way in which they're very boyish,
Yeah,
and that they're not embodied in the masculine somehow.
yeah,
Perhaps because they haven't. I don't know how to say that, but and then there's a feminine leadership, and it seems to be often women in suits trying to be hyper aggressive.
yeah.
And I'm not against women in suits or anything like that, but you know what I mean. So where do you see this actually happening and working, and how can it work, and how do we bring Eros to all these eggheads in the Silicon Valley world? Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the ones leading, the development of AI and of tech are engineers, which are
yeah,
more in the creating masculine. So actually, they might not be the archetypes who can deeply meet, the feminine in her full erotic intelligence. Like, I see what is really missing is priests, like the holding masculine men,
yeah.
really, and then yeah, and then that there's powerful women who, like, so I can take a concrete example, like, so we like for the feminine, it's very embodied, it's very energetic. So to me, it feels very helpful to use kind of like very archetypes that paint a very energetic picture to be able to step into these energies. So I talk about the sacred seductress for the erotic intelligence, the Black Panther for the natural intelligence, and the crone for the mystic intelligence. We haven't even talked about the mystic intelligence yet, but
Hmm.
so for this Black Panther, just an example. So I've worked in tech a lot. I've worked a lot with engineers, a lot of these like creating masculine men, and they they don't respond to what I say. They respond to what they feel in my body. So what the Black Panther does is step into, like a scrum meeting or a boardroom and just like vibrates with this like feminine primal power. This is like rah. And what happens is the men bodily respond to that energy and just really like want to shape up. It's not the nagging mother that's like, "Oh, you should." It's just that they're like, "Whoa," like their bodies respond even if they intellectually don't understand it. I just feel their bodies responding, and their shoulders straighten, their back straightens, and they're like, "Okay, how can I do my fucking best with this project, to give it my all, to be in service." And this is like the leadership dynamic that is needed. And like, I mean, I don't even want to blame these like tech bros because they with I mean, the phallic gaze is really lacking, but this matriarchal fierce power and the seduction of Eros is also lacking. So like
Right,
they
right.
don't have anything to guide them.
Yeah, so I don't want to be male bashing here either. It's a
I
it's a
love
tricky
men.
it's a tricky line to cross, because I also noticed that guys who have become very feminine, in a way,
Yeah.
and have become sort of champions of women, women's
Yeah.
rights. And they tend to look at these engineered people, they tend to look down at them.
Yeah.
And they tend to look down at the masculine. Like
Yeah.
once they've discovered the feminine, they become sort of a slave, unconscious slaves to that, and they start to look down on the masculine.
Yes.
No?
Yes. Because it's again, they think it's a shortcut to be able to meet the goddess, that they can just be these like
A
pro-feminine.
shortcut, yes.
It's a shortcut. And this is what Bard also talks about in Process and Event, that like a sign of a healthy priest is that he has utter respect for the chief, and a sign of a healthy chief is that he has utter respect for the priest. But these boyish boy pharaohs and pillar saints, like the fake priest and chief,
Yeah.
they don't have like the chief has zero respect for wisdom, and the priest has zero respect for like this pathic power of the chief. And it's the same resentment that they have towards women, they have towards each other, because they don't, because then it's trying to get the shortcut to not be having to grow up. Because the thing
Yes.
is, the holding masculine, the creating masculine, the feminine all hold really important truths that are like completely true in themselves, and they need each other. But when one of them thinks it's only my truth that's needed, that's when we're going south, because an adult collaborates with the other archetypes. A child or a boy, that's childish fantasy to think that only my archetype is the one that's needed. And this is what we see with these engineering guys, that like we with only the creating masculine truth can save the world, and it's gonna destroy the world. Just like if the feminine said it's only the feminine truth that's needed, that would also be destructive, like equally.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's something you said I want to go back to, and that is the shortcut to the feminine kind of thing that you were
Yeah,
talking to. And I was listening to this, I don't know, occultist type guy talk about the dark feminine.
yeah,
And he said that, there's two aspects of kind of religion and spirituality. One is sort of ascending, right? It's
yeah,
like ascending towards the light, going up the mountain.
yeah,
And then there's the descending to meet the dark feminine, which
yeah,
means going through the underworld,
yeah,
in a mythological way. And that is a trial and a tribulation
yes,
and a struggle
yeah,
and a journey through hell, perhaps,
yeah,
which is also part of that journey. So you can't just meet the feminine it's so easily, it would seem. And I think one of the problems today is, again, we have these extremes. We have sort of, on one hand, we have the feminine kind of, in veils, and on the other hand, we have this easy access,
yeah.
which degrades
The
the
fake
whole
feminine.
process
Yeah,
in some kind of a way.
yeah. Yeah, because we replaced the fierce matriarch with the unconditional loving mother. That's like, goddess is free for all. Where actually you really have to do the work to be able to meet the goddess. Um, yeah, and I don't know if this is too philosophical, complex to just take briefly, but there's also this very fascinating about the ascension and the descending and ascending, that like in a way, like the ascension is a very masculine spirituality, and it's actually kind of the chief that has this will to transcendence, that wants to expand beyond what has been, like the
Hmm.
dream of creating something beyond what we know.
Yeah.
And the feminine is more connected to, I mean, what Alexander calls process, or the immanent, like rather than leaning out from the world, leaning into the world. But what we missed is that, so we had this relationship to the mother before, the great mother, where everything was just cyclical. But Eric Neumann in The Great Mother, who looks at all like the different archetype, like findings of statues and such of women, and Mary, like so many talk about how we made this shift from the Great Mother to the goddess.
Yeah.
So the feminine is not only about the descent, which is basically meeting death. It is also a form of meeting death, so that then meeting the trials of death, so that you can get really intimate with life and feel the aliveness of life, and that is Eros. and that is what should be fueling the ascent. So it's like that's what should be fueling the transcendence of the masculine.
Yep.
So I also don't agree with this view that masculine is evolution and feminine is just the cycle of death, not evolving. Actually, it's you have to lean in to like the deep immanence to find the aliveness that fuels and inspires. And that creates this spiral movement
Yep.
that has
Yep.
both process and event. And there's so few people who have understood this about the feminine. Maya Luna is a feminine philosopher, mystic, spiritual teacher that like explains this so beautifully and such an embodied way. For example, she talks about what actual real spirituality is the meeting of the goddess and her human consort. And that the goddess is not above the human. It's like it's lovemaking between the human and the goddess. And that's
Yes.
this deep immanent spirituality. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's the non-duality of the ascension and the descension, or the trip down and the trip up. So we tend to dualize,
Yeah.
and that's a masculine thing in a way. That's
Yeah.
a natural masculine thing to dualize, to separate things, to
Yeah.
cut things into pieces, to say this or that, or rather than see the holistic kind of picture.
Yeah.
um, you know, um, and that's why I guess priests they kind of often they leave the world of the feminine completely,
Yeah.
but they don't ever actually leave it, because even if
Yeah.
they go to the mountain, they're still, meeting the
And,
feminine in a
and
way.
the
So
thing, yeah.
so I think that I think what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
Um,
And the thing is, they should leave the world of the feminine, and I think
yeah.
that's a lot of female philosophers or mystics, they say like, oh, the whole problem is that the masculine has left the feminine. But like, we need to separate from other, like this, there is this transcendence of the masculine. That is human nature of creating culture and creating, that kind of defies nature, creates more,
Mm.
we've created the internet, like it's amazing. But the thing is the right relationship. So it's coming back, leaving, coming back, leaving. It's not just coming back or just leaving. And I think this is what I see very few people understanding. Yeah, the holding all of the truth and the right relationship.
Mhm.
And also I think that is also the feminine wisdom that maybe men don't have as much access to. And we talked about this before, that like in masculine spirituality, you talk about the dual realm or the non-dual. But there is another realm that Almas talks about, Patricia Bear talks about it, Lovisa, my teacher, talks about it. Is called the unilocal, and I think I've told you about this. And that's
Mhm.
a spiritual state that is not. It's not what, for example, Bard talks about this infinite now, this like super ecstatic state, and it's not that state where you just go to so much stillness that you come in. Those are both portals into the non-dual state where you
Mhm.
either get evolved in the dissolved in the intensity, or like dissolved in the stillness, kind of, if you know
Yeah, that's still in the realm of states and stages
exactly. But
and all that, but there's something beyond that, or in a
the
way. And
unilocal feminine spirituality is that, and this, I mean, this is exactly like, you can't explain the infinite now, and you can't explain these spiritual states, but there's another movement. It's like, it's the goddess, me as the goddess. Like, it's, I'm both me and the divine at the same time. And I think this is a very
Mhm.
feminine experience, spiritual experience in the world, that just like women can experience the the non-dual states of well, of course men can also, but I think it just comes more natural to women. And I think that's why the crone, which is this mystic intelligence, which is the women who can hold this, who can understand this movement of coming back to the feminine, going out, like crones, like real feminine leaders, are women who understand the importance of the feminine, who hold that we're all gonna die, like we're all still children of the Great Mother in one sense, but during our lifetime we can give it our all to contribute as much as possible. So she can hold this movement of both connecting to the feminine and leaving the feminine for the masculine, going out and really doing the work he should be doing in the world. And that's like a huge thing I see lacking, like the elder women who can hold the right relationship between men and women.
Yeah, it seems like the society is missing grandmothers or something, or missing these types of figures,
Yeah.
they tend to be dismissed or tragically kind of, because they don't have that sort of glow of sexuality that the younger people have. We don't realize they have a different kind, they're evolving into a different kind of power.
Yeah, and I think this is like one of the biggest misconceptions because when we talk about the glow of sexuality, we're often talking about the whore, like this. But actually, for example, Mama Gina has a book called Pussy, a Reclamation, and there she writes about like in some tribe where they used sex magic. They had, women who were very had the lineage of female sexuality as a source of power. And she says in that book, like when they wanted really potent sexual power and sexual magic, they took the oldest woman in the tribe. And I think actually women's sexual power grows because because we understand that our sexuality is not for getting approval of men and it's not for creating babies. So it's like
Hmm.
when we leave the reproductive, that's when we actually step into our real sexual power.
Interesting. Like somebody said, like menopausal women. I know somebody who teaches courses on that. It's like a second spring, or it's a second,
Yes.
it's a new
Yes.
era of life. Of course,
I mean, for me, like just also when I have tantric encounters with like older women, it's like it's so fucking powerful. Like, ah, yeah.
hmm.
I bow to my knees. Like I'm in awe of older women who have been initiated. Um,
Hmm. Yeah. So, it's, concerning like initiation, maybe we get back to your course because, in a sense, I sense there's a way in which these courses are. They're called courses, and I guess they can only scratch the surface of these
yeah.
issues. But in another way, they act as a kind of initiation of sorts.
Hmm.
Would you say?
Yeah, for sure. So my intention for the course, I mean, of course, this is a huge subject. So, but it's kind of I think like two main intentions. So one is to share this worldview, like to share my take on the right relationship between men and women. So to like give a map in a sense, because even if like these initiations, especially for women, but also for men, are very embodied and can't be achieved through like a philosophical course, I think there is still a very I mean, had I known that these intelligences, like the erotic intelligence and the natural intelligence, the mystical intelligence, the feminine, that they even existed, it would have like changed my life earlier. So there's something about just getting a map or a worldview that I think gives us permission to start stepping into these archetypes. So that's the first purpose. But then the other is to, especially during these campfire sessions, to start to just get a taste. Like for women, what does the erotic intelligence feel like? And for men, like what does it feel like or what is my, embodied experience of meeting Eros? Have I even met it? To yeah, to get a taste or like to start feeling, embodying these deep archetypal powers and energies. And there, like my work is mostly awakening women to these intelligences because I don't have the phallic gaze. Like that's not my role. For men, and I have deep respect for that. Like I think there's work that men need to do with each other, but I do think there's purpose to us understanding each other better, basically. Even
Yeah.
if we never fully will, of course, because men and women are quite different.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing I sense, and I think a lot of people are sensing that the difference it needs to be reestablished,
Hmm.
but in a way that is not like before.
Yeah,
And I think you're
yeah,
doing that kind of a work.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And to me, it comes back to that like unless women are initiated into their true power, like the discourse on gender, like so. So what we could see was that like so this movement happened where there was these philosophers in the religion that didn't want to grow up, so they made the feminine, the true feminine, the erotic intelligence into the devil and sin, and the natural intelligence into unconditional loving mother. So what's happened, so for example, like after the modern age of women, like after the Second World War, women, I'm so grateful, and rightly so, really started demanding back their agency. And because women's relationship to men got like really distorted because of these philosophies that made the woman into the whore, the perfect mother. And we can still see that going on around in large places of the world, and it's a terrible way, like it's a terrible life for women and also for men, I think.
Yeah.
But what happened then was that since there was no wisdom about what is actually the feminine, so we said like, I don't want to be the whore, I don't want to be the perfect mother. So then I guess the only route left is to become masculine. So there was this whole, like, yes, we can era. But what we've just seen the past years since then is just this pendulum swing. So first it was like, yes, we can for the women, after the world
Hmm.
wars. And then women got so tired of being in the masculine because it's fucking taxing for of women to just fully be in the masculine. Of course, all men and women can be in both, but to like live your whole life like a man is really taxing for our bodies. So then there was this pendulum swim in the 50s where like, no, I want to be the perfect trad wife. Um, and then, of course, women got sick of that because that's not the true feminine either. So then it became again the girl boss era of the 90s of like we can be CEOs and we can be, we can be the masculine. And now we're seeing this. I don't know if you've heard of this, but this soft girl phenomenon, where it's like a modern version of the trad wife. Have you heard about this, Andrew?
I've kind of seen it spinning
Yeah.
around. Yeah, this kind of trad
It's
wife thing. Yeah.
huge among young women.
Yeah.
So we just see this swing because the only option that women are given is the whore, the unconditional perfect mother. And this is what we can see, like in Afghanistan. You try the it's a boyish projection of the woman to be the perfect mother, and since she can
Of
never be
course.
your mother because she's not your mother and you should grow up, you just make her the ideal on her becomes stricter and stricter and stricter till she just is nothing, because that's nothing, and perfection is the same thing, like you just
Mm.
minimize. That's what happened when you try to make women the perfect mother. So it's the whore, the perfect mother, or a man. Those are like the three options that women have been given, um, rather than like truly stepping into.
So you're articulating these other options.
Mm,
Maybe you could let's go into that more.
yeah.
The other options, like, okay, so we have this male projection on women, either whore or
Mm,
mother,
yeah.
which rules the world for thousands of years, I guess,
Yeah.
since, farming, even, or, way
Yeah.
back, right?
Yeah.
Um, you could argue that women in traditional cultures, indigenous cultures, are way more powerful than they were, for example, in the Middle Ages, or
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, so so yeah. So are these new options, or are they reclaiming old options?
They're reclaiming old options. At least, this is the thing.
But they're
Most
new for us, right?
They're new.
Because they've been
They're reclaiming
forgotten.
old options, but they're not going all the way back to the cyclical Great Mother worship. So
Hmm.
it's claiming old options, but like going back to, I mean, what Alexander talks about, like during the Bronze Age, or when there was goddess worship. So it's
Yeah.
like it's not going back all the way to only Great Mother worship. It's going back to goddess worship, and archetypical and goddess worship, the right relationship between the masculine and the feminine. And here again, we have both within us, but is that the feminine holds the sexual, the spiritual, and in a sense, political power. And the masculine holds the rational, technological, physical power.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
And neither the whore, I mean, the whore is sexuality without power, and the
Hmm.
unconditional mother is some kind of political, spiritual power, but she's just the perfect, it's an illusion.
Hmm.
It's not a powerful spiritual power. It's just, yeah, it's just the unconditional soft mother. So the true, like there are truths in the whore and the mother, but it's again, this is the split. So it's bringing, reclaiming the whore, reclaiming the true mother, who is a fucking fierce mother,
Yeah.
and integrating them all into a woman who holds the spiritual, the sexual, and the political. What I mean, this matriarchal approval of the chief and the priest that make sure that they're in that they're doing their job well, you know.
Yeah. Well,
So that,
I know. It seems to be almost like a characteristic of Abrahamic religions to have turned the, let's say, the feminine into the Holy Ghost or something.
yeah,
Uh, I don't know. Whereas I'm a tantric Buddhist, and in that tradition you have Vajragini. You have all kinds of, in the West it's the red goddess or the black goddess, and these have always existed, but they're very much underground.
yeah,
Whereas I think they're probably underground in the East too, in
yeah,
some way, because most people sort of, I don't know, I don't know, can't handle that sort of thing. But they're also worshipped, like they're also not degraded, and they're
yeah,
worshipped.
yeah,
So that it seems to me that some sort of worship, like of the feminine, is I mean, in my tradition that's kind of normal, but it's not in the West. It's
exactly.
considered terrifying or evil
Yeah,
or something, or on one hand, or it's considered, or there's this neo-paganism on the other hand, which is just like idealizing uh, everything feminine, and stomping on the male,
yeah,
patriarch or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the thing is like that the you said that like the feminine is underground, and that in a sense is in a right relationship. You know, it is a lot of the feminine power is in the tantric realm. And
Yeah.
there's this matriarchal power that's what we talked about, like guarding, making sure that the masculine has done what he needs to do to be able to be allowed to enter the tantric realm. Which again, in the model, like the chief, the priest, and the matriarch, that's not all of it's like the spiritual and the sexual power of the feminine are how do you call it, like they're implicit, or they're not enforced. They're, you know what I'm trying to say? Like the
Mhm.
power of the chief is very literal in a sense, but like the sexual power of the feminine is because it's in the tantric realm. It's a
Yeah.
different kind of power, and that's what's so beautiful between men and women, that like, yeah, men can, and that's what we're seeing today. Men can build a world with only, false chiefs and priests that don't want to meet the feminine. And then we just have this dead technological cyborg world that I don't want to be a part of. Or the feminine can say, we don't need the masculine. And then but then we're like, we're back to living in huts, and, like, and even then, we're dependent on, when we're pregnant, like there's this beautiful dependency on between each other. And then there's so much fucking distorted, social discourse that's been disempowering women and men. So, it's a really tricky subject, but there is something beautiful in the core that we like need each other. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I think it feels to me that, what you're offering, what you're, going to talk about in this course, and is also something that's kind of emerging in the 21st century, uh, in the age of, let's say, unlimited sort of phallic progress that leads to nullity, like leads to nothing, that
Yeah.
leads to just death,
Yeah.
destruction.
Yeah. Exactly. And this brings me back to the question that you said, like, something about, is it bringing back lost wisdom or creating new wisdom? And that we came to the conclusion that it's both. Um, but it's also this thing that, like, yes, there's a correct analysis that this unbridled, just masculine development is leading us to death, but that doesn't mean that masculine development is bad. And I think,
Yeah.
that's the mistake that so many, especially women and these feminine loving but not truly in their masculine men, uh, talk about. And that's just not human nature. Like, human nature is developing beyond the process, creating new, bigger, better worlds. And that's why we live.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it should be in service of her. Why we're creating it
And
is,
her means nature to a certain extent,
it
right?
means the
Is
divine
that what it
feminine.
means?
Yeah, it means nature, but within nature, there's also, and this is divine immanence rather than just immanence. Nature is spiral, not cyclical. Like there is room
Hmm.
for evolution in nature,
Hmm.
and this is the wisdom of the crone that like is so missing. What I'm talking that there's room for the spiral. It's not just a
It's a
circle.
change within each cycle. Yeah. I mean,
And
the reason I thought of nature, I thought of, I thought of agricultural world and the fact that, you can create a monocrop and it will just destroy everything eventually if you just keep doing it.
yeah,
Whereas you have to have fallow, you have to leave the field, without, for a while. And there's a sort of, that's the nature that there's something in just nature which does need to be respected. Uh-huh. But there's something in transcendence also that has to be respected.
exactly.
So I think we go either one way or the other, going towards just sort of, trying to say that culture is bad or something and that we should go back that is a Rousseauian version of reality, which just leads to, people eating each other, in
Yes,
the end. And then the other option is, the other thing is that we go for transcendence and we become completely disembodied,
yeah.
AI creatures without any connection to nature at all. So
And it's this transcendence that wants to skip adulthood, that thinks that we can transcend our way to God by not having to relate to the feminine again.
yeah.
But actually, the most fulfilling transcendence that like just makes us live the most fulfilling life is to, get in line with the phallic gaze, find your elder men who can guide you in life and really become a man and step into your masculinity so that you can achieve. So whatever you're building is really docked in to what wants to come alive and this feminine wisdom of the crone of how to balance this transcendence and immanence.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Mhm. So we have the crone, and what were your other formulations again? Remind me.
So basically, it's kind of maiden mother crone
Maiden, mother crone.
is
Yeah.
one way you could talk about it. But we have so much projections on the maiden and the mother that I sometimes avoid talking about, or maybe I should just reclaim it because it just so easily becomes the whore and the virginal mother, and that's like so far from what I'm talking about when I say maiden mother crone.
Well, I don't know. Maybe dakini is a good word that we could exappropriate
Yeah,
for the West. I don't know. It,
yeah.
it, it does have a kind of corny New Age. It
I
could
mean,
it
that's
could
why I,
devolve into a corny New Age
yeah. That's
idea
why
as
I talk
well.
about the sacred seductress instead of the maiden and the Black Panther instead of the mother, because there is you can understand this primal, a cat animal protecting her cubs. There is a lot of that
Hmm.
primal mother
Yeah.
energy, but it's not when it's directed to an adult man. This is the difference. There's this primal mother energy, fierceness that's towards an adult man, and then there's the mothering energy towards a child, and we shouldn't mix those up.
Hmm. Yeah,
Just
well, in the iconography of sort of Hindu and Buddhist and Eastern Tantra, you always have these ferocious types of beings, right? The right, the pregnant tigress,
yeah,
the woman, who's with a necklace of skulls.
yeah,
All of these, all kinds of images. Kali is the most well known, but there's a huge um, there's a huge diversity of feminine, archetypes in that world, which I think in the West kind of get kind of unconscious and come out in pop culture
yeah,
or whatever. But
yeah.
I guess
But
that's the way the West deals with it. But
yeah.
perhaps we haven't come to terms with the Red Goddess or whatever. I wrote a book called Songs to the Red Goddess as a kind of a devotional text to to that
Yeah.
principle.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you read Dancing in the Flames with Marion Woodman and Eleanor Dixon. She tells the story of that, like, so this happened, the Abrahamic religions came and made the feminine into whore evil or unconditional love mother. And all of other kind of feminine power was, made wrong or evil. But people still kept worshiping, the Black Madonna. Like there's tons of statues. You find tons of statues
Oh,
of.
it's all there in the West for sure. I mean, even the
But
women who are at the feet of Jesus when he
yeah,
died, and Mary Magdalene, and it's all there in the Western story as
but
well.
then what happened in the
Uh-huh.
West was that the plague came, and then it was like utter horror. And for people to be able to, live with because then it was very Christian, and God, everything was in order to God's will, but they couldn't take that they had a God that wanted to, kill like a third of the people. So then this dark, it started spreading that like maybe the plague came because we've been sinning, because we've been still revering this dark goddess. So maybe that's why we've been punished. And that's what led up to the witch burnings, according to
Hmm.
Marion Woodman. And I
Hmm.
think that's quite a solid analysis.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
the thing in the
Well,
West,
it's
it's
a
not even
scapegoat analysis too, right? It's like you have to have
exactly.
somebody to blame, so you blame the innocent, the innocent victim
Yeah.
or
And
the
then so
innocent person or whatever.
exactly. So in the and I mean it's not that the feminine is innocent. She's everything. She's life and death, but it's just yeah, distorted. But anyways, then so it's not like she's just been so utterly smashed into the shadows, like the true feminine powers. And then, with the world wars, it was, this big realization in the West that like, fuck this only transcendent, only masculine, it didn't work either. It also just led to evil and mass destruction. And then the masculine power got also pushed into the shadows, masculinity, even if it wasn't true masculinity that led to the world wars. It was this distorted masculinity of either, the boy pharaoh and the pillar saints and all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
But still, all of masculinity also got pushed in the shadows, and that like leads us up to the Swedish society where like both the masculine and the feminine are so lost, and it's like creating chaos, and we're not even having kids with each other anymore.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, the Eros has been lost.
Yeah,
So I guess this is another really important thing to rediscover. I also associate that with more and more just because of my studies of Western esotericism and Eastern esotericism, and I associate that with magic in a way.
yeah,
So it seems that there's a masculine magic and there's a feminine magic, but
yeah,
the magic has to be restored. You could call it
yeah.
Eros, but you could also, I don't have a problem calling it magic.
Yeah. And it's almost it so the masculine magic is this ability to imagine worlds that don't exist yet and build them, that's magic.
Yeah.
And the feminine magic is like really going deep into the utter presence of existence so that you just, you know, become life force, become one with, become, and that's a kind of magic. And it's almost like we've switched the roles. So new, like a lot of feminine new age magic is about, imagining other worlds and other realms, and that's actually a
Hmm.
masculine form of magic.
Oh,
And the
interesting.
masculine magic is completely disconnect, like it's become completely backwards. The true feminine mystic, is, it's the descent of Inanna, like knows that we're utterly mortal, like there's nothing beyond death. We're like not nothing beyond death. Again, it becomes this unilocal, like it's, I mean, I won't be able to explain it, but like it's not the new age stories. It's like a deep, deep divine immanence that you it's not saying no to reality. It's going so fucking deep into reality that you realize that reality is magic in itself. You don't need the stories.
That's interesting. So you're saying that the storytelling, about the future is related to the masculine principle,
I mean, it's
and where and,
related.
the, and whereas all of this sort of fortune telling and this like cheesy tarot stuff and this kind of seems to be a seduction of the feminine, right? To just lose all sense of reality and go into this kind of
Yeah,
uh,
that's the feminine without the masculine.
that's the feminine without the right. The feminine without the masculine, and the masculine without the feminine would be just all of that is bullshit, right? It's
Yeah,
all bullshit.
yeah.
That's the
But
that's where like guys like this was sorry,
Yeah.
there's something I heard again about in Crowley they talk about the Black Brothers. And the Black Brothers are men who have, they've had some kind of spiritual experience and they've touched, let's say, Eros in a way, but they've denied it.
Yeah.
So they deny it, and then they become Sam Harris. They
Yeah.
become hyper masculine kind of, but just fighting the culture war, and they've lost that sort of because the next stage is transrational. It's not you can't. You can't fit it into your program. So
Yeah.
this is what Crowley calls the Black Brothers, and I think that's an interesting concept
Yeah.
of where perhaps, and I didn't connect that to, let's say, Eros and sexuality and men and women, but I think it is deeply connected to that.
Yeah, and it's this interesting thing about, surrender, and there's a lot of talk that the feminines should surrender the masculine, but actually when it comes to spirituality, like the point of the phallic gaze, among one of the things, is to become strong enough so that you can enter the tantric realm and surrender and let go of surrender is a very feminine word. I know guys don't like that word, but like there's something about letting go of control so that you can meet the goddess and
I
really
go further than surrender. I say worship, which
yeah,
people don't like.
exactly.
People
Worship.
don't like
Better
that at
word.
all, but
Better word.
but that goes even further.
So that
And
you're strong enough so that you truly can worship the goddess, like
yeah,
true worship of the goddess, not this fake,
not
oh,
flattery.
I want
Not
I want women to like me so that I say that the feminine is important. Like that's still being a boy.
yeah.
It's like really being in your mask so that you really can meet the goddess. And I also want to say something about this, that like tarot and that it's just bullshit and stuff. It's like this is what is so fucking like difficult to explain because it's like when I've had my deepest sexual dakini meetings, like it is magic. Like I can see into the future. I don't see into the future like, oh, next week this is gonna happen and da da da. But it's like I get this deep, and this is the mystic intelligence of the feminine. Like there is this just deep knowing about the world because we become so close to reality that we can feel the aliveness of the trees and the leaves and like we get so much more information because when we get close to Eros about the world, that then we can make stories that have a lot more information about the intimacy of the world. So when you talk about that the masculine principle is about vision, it's the transcendent vision, whereas the feminine vision is the immanent vision. So they both have vision and both have a role, but they're different kind of visions. But the problem
Mhm.
is when women haven't had their Eros awakening and their power awakening, they still have mother and father projections, and they create these new age spiritualities not from like really having done the ascent of Inanna and really fucking faced the world and leaned in, but just, like, oh, I have this feminine intuition that this, they haven't done the work either. And that becomes what you can call new age.
Yeah. I mean, I was denigrating tarot, but I'm totally
I know
obsessed
you
with it.
can.
I'm
Yeah,
totally obsessed with it, and the reason I'm obsessed with it is not because I'm looking to read the future or I want to manipulate people's energies or anything like that. I'm fascinated with, let's say, the symbolic world, the world
exactly.
which is the reason they endured so long, like the original tarot, the Marseille tarot, is they're completely bizarre. They don't actually give you clear answers. So in a way, when you look at them, they give you answers, but it's always shifting and moving. So it's not like masculine, platonic, idealized archetypes. It's more like a contemplation of mystery.
Exactly.
So
It's the,
perhaps that's working with the feminine in a way,
yeah,
or perhaps that's part of
subconscious.
the worship of the feminine is the worship of mystery,
Yeah.
of mysticism in that sense.
It's the access, tarot is portal to the subconscious.
For
And
sure.
in the subconscious realm, that's where there's so much information there. And then so the real dynamic, you know, between the masculine and the feminine is that the feminine is the wisdom keeper of the subconscious realm, of the spiritual realm, which is also the sexual realm. One of the best portals into the subconscious is through sex, through sacred sexuality, and women are the leaders of that realm. So what they do is that they invite especially the priests into that realm and to meet the goddess and get this information, and then he can take that information and create clarity that then the chief can, you know, get inspired, feel the libido of it, and create a vision for like, I want to fucking build, you know, something that will make it better for the tribe, you know, that will bring civilization forward. But since there's a link all the way down to the priest having gone into the tantric realm and being fueled by this eros, by this libido, the masculine vision and building won't get lost, because there's just this deep link to this deep, to the breathing of the leaves, you know, to this deep knowing of life. There's this link all the way through, and there's a crone there who knows that like we have to allow the masculine transcendence to go beyond nature, because that's you know, that's human nature. We want to grow, we want to strive. And when the creating masculine is too far off, you know, got lost in his own egoic trying to build the pyramid just because it feels good, not because he's actually in service of this deep eros and life force that he's feeling, then she steps into the fierceness and just, you know, gets him to get back in shape. And that's how we see this dynamic of societies evolving through information from the tantric realm that then the masculine puts into action in the sutric realm, and that creates an evolution of society that is in the right balance with these. And you can directly translate that to a business. It becomes a lot easier, you know, that it's like creating clarity from the holding masculine that is really docked in to the feminine, that then is put into action by the creating masculine. And I've seen it work. Like, you know, we can talk about abstract theories, but, you know, just building a team, you know, just like an engineering team, and having these dynamics in place, like everybody gets so enlivened. Like I wrote something in my book and posted it the other day about an engineer that I worked with, that he was like explaining what my presence was doing for him in the team. And what he said was that, you know, when you like talked about where we were going and what we were doing, I just felt it. Like I just, you know, I just wanted to follow it. And then he was like, I was seduced, you know, I was
Yeah.
seduced
Yeah.
by it. And
Yeah.
he's like, and there's so much fucking corporate bullshit about like, these are our vision, these are our values, you know, trying to replicate
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
feminine,
Yeah.
trying to like, this is the vision and we have these values, and it's just bullshit. He said it so brilliant. He's like, it's like telling a joke and then explaining to people what was funny about the joke. Or
Yeah.
if you're trying to seduce someone and like, Andrew, you should like me because I'm very beautiful and I'm very intelligent and blah, and like giving
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
reasons for you to be attracted by me, rather than just like being life force, so that you're just like, who are you? I want, you know, and this is the seduction, the erotic and mystic intelligence. It's not only the seduction, it's also that I was tapped in to a deeper aliveness that for him just like made sense. And like, I want to build something in service of this. Like
Yeah, well,
and
this
it
is the
made
other
that,
thing
yeah,
that perhaps people are missing in our culture, is that men do, even if they don't explicitly worship the feminine. Oh,
exactly.
that's
They
all
can't
they
help
want to do,
themselves.
really. I
They
mean,
can't help themselves.
that's all men want to do, really.
Yeah.
So if that's in the mix, they'll do anything for that, right? You know,
But
and if it's not in the mix, they become psychotic, they become
exactly.
depressed, they go on, you know, they take opiates, they watch
Yeah.
TV, they play video games, they become incels, they kill themselves. You know,
There's
it's really like if there's no feminine in the mix, you know, if there's no eros in the mix, it's a sad world for dudes, you know.
very sad world for dudes. Yes, so that's one big problem. But then we're also seeing men, these men, when the phallic gaze is not in the mix. And we
Hmm.
talked about this
Yeah,
as well.
also,
So they're
yeah.
either when the feminine is not in the mix, men become psychotic and depressed and lose their will to live, or just get this, megalomaniac idea of like, I'm gonna conquer life and live forever. And it just is like, like you
Yeah.
just feel that like, oh, this is fucking off. Like this is not how I would want to live my life. So
Yeah.
that's when Eros is missing. But when the phallic gaze is missing, they also become these soft, weird men who are not doing what they need to do out in the world. They haven't done what they need to do to get the reward of worshiping the goddess. The
Yeah.
men
Yeah.
have to, and that's why, like, yes, men are here to worship the goddess, but men are also here to, protect, provide, be, and serve, and
Well,
that's,
that is worshiping. I mean,
I know, I
it's
know,
not sucking up to and flattering
exactly,
and and being a sneaky fucker. I think there was an expression like that up there. That's not what it's about.
yeah,
Because well, I don't know. I think the phallic gaze. Yeah, I think that there's definitely a need for that as well.
yeah,
And I'd be interesting to hear what you mean by that and what that means exactly, right? I know Bard uses that term all the time, but
yeah. I mean, for example, so I led a team together with a man, and that was brilliant. So we each had our own teams, and then we realized like it's so much better if we put the teams together and we can lead them. Then I can lean into my feminine, and you can lead into my masculine. And that quality that my colleague was talking about, like he just felt, drawn in, that wouldn't be enough. Like he also needed my male colleague there who just had this backbone and clarity of like, okay, you're feeling the energy to do this. What's the next step? How do we structure it? How do we do it? Uh, and and also like you have to work even maybe when you're not feeling it. Like there's something about grit. It's
yeah,
so in a business team, like this is the phallic gaze, like this man who himself is like out there in the trenches, like out there in the trenches with the team, doing late nights, doing the work, so that the team gets like really riled up and inspired and like, fuck yeah, let's put in the hours, let's do this. This sense of like masculine self-worth and like I'm worthy, I'm capable, I'm like, fuck yeah, I can do this.
yeah,
And then it feels so much better when the women then like when they see the dynamic that like by them putting in the work, I become even more in my life force and I become even more connected to my feminine wisdom, and I can hold the team even better, and I can, it just I become even more alive, and then they get even more inspired to do even more work, and it's just this like really cool
yeah. I
dynamic.
heard this expression. So I think without the phallic gaze, men get lost in Shakti slime, which is which means they get stuck in the feminine kind of like they
Yeah,
get stuck there,
and
and
it's
so they don't.
easy.
It's not about being exposed to the feminine 24/7, like always being around. It's very important, I think, for guys to step away from the feminine for even for extended periods of time.
Yeah, and you know what the
And they need a man to kind of as a mentor, an older man or a guy who's going to inspire them other ways.
yeah,
Otherwise they just become slaves because that force is so powerfully seductive, right? As you say, but
yeah.
I'm using that in the negative sense of seductive, not in the positive sense.
But
So
it is both
yeah,
positive and,
it's
but like I
both.
think
Yeah.
um or like it's potent, that's the word. Like
Hmm.
it's fire, don't play with fire if you're not ready, like it's powerful. That's what it is. And it can
Hmm.
lead you astray if if you don't have your shit together.
Yeah, because there's something about being unseducible and seducible. I think it's both.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
like real masculinity can't be seduced by anything,
Yeah.
anybody. It's so far beyond being
Yeah.
seduced by anything or anybody, and it will not bend over, you know.
Yeah.
That's a form of powerful masculinity, but
Yeah.
that's extremely seductive. That's the irony
Yes.
of that, right?
Yes, that's all. And the thing is, because so again, like in a business sense, like I have a deep calling in the world. I feel a deep connection to what I'm here to do and my life force. And when I connect into that, I call in men who want to, protect and provide for that deeper vision, and then they create the masculine vision on top of the feminine vision and all of that. Um, but I also sometimes meet men who just are clear to me, like, Fanny, that's not my work to do in the world. That's not that I'm not here to put my protection and provision and masculine energy into that vision. I have something else to do. And that's also sexy, you know? It's not like just this like there's and this is the initiation of men, like finding your archetype and finding your role and finding what you're here to do. And there's wisdom in that too. So it's not just this like as soon as any woman comes and wants something from you, you should give it to them. There's also this integrity of like, what is my work to do in the world? And it's so great for a woman to meet a man who knows what his work is to do in the world. Um, yeah, I don't know. Does that make
Totally,
sense?
totally
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah, totally makes sense. And yeah, that is the journey, I guess, for guys. It's like, who am I? What is my work in the world? And this is, and when you figure that out, it's like, it's a sort of Nietzsche. You can have any circumstance is irrelevant.
yeah,
I always find that, women don't always understand that they're always because they're concerned about, everything has to be paid, the bills and, safety, keeping things kind of like safe for the world and but there's that dynamic, right? I mean, there's another kind of risk for women. I like, but there's a kind of risk for men which is different perhaps than the risk. I don't
yeah.
know. That's another thing we could perhaps. I think we can talk about the subjects infinitely. Like,
I think so too.
what's risk for men and what is risk for women? What is the
Yeah,
Gaffney was talking about the sacred risk, or I forget his phrase.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
what's the risk that a guy has to take, and what is the risk that a woman has to take?
yeah, yeah. And like for women, showing our eros to men is like the most riskful thing we can do. Like it's
Mm,
really just opening ourselves up. So for men, they have to go out in the phallic gaze, build up their strength, show that they're worthy, find their purpose, get their self of confidence, their masculine strength, find their archetype, and then they're ready to meet the feminine. And this happens fractally, it happens every hour, every minute, every day, and
mm,
there's an arc. For women, they need to be initiated by the older women into their sexuality and their power, their eros and their power. This learn to really hold this erotic energy and to understand the truth of it, that it's not to get approval from men. It's not even
mm,
that the true sacred spiritual truth of our eros is that we are the aliveness that fuels the world, and that taps into this wisdom and aliveness of the world, and to really own that and hold that, and then find our strength, our power, find our inner Black Panther, our inner Predator, our inner our inner Kali, so that when we meet men, we don't lose ourselves in this masculine seduction of the outer world, of their visions and what they're doing, because then we become just like they become boys for the mother, we become daughters for the father.
coquettish kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Mm.
there's journeys that both men and women have to do to be able to meet and have this epic collaboration and be in the right relationship.
Oh, that's great, Fanny. I really, one of the big takeaways I'm getting from this is the need of this crone figure that
Yeah.
you're mentioning as initiation, because otherwise the women seem kind of lost and always trying to impress each other and the men
Yeah.
and in some sort of Instagram nightmare in a way,
Yeah.
and men are so it's like men talking on YouTube, and women displaying themselves on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it shows who we are unconsciously,
Yeah.
but there's a journey, like a spiritual journey, you know so that there's a higher level of that sort of eros needs to be
Yeah.
expressed, it seems to me.
Yeah. And I think this goes back maybe to bring to the start of the conversation that I just had this when I got in contact with my Eros, that I was like, shit, like this is what the world needs. And it still feels true today with all of this, research and experiences I've had, that like that's the core of it. Um, and but again, maybe it's the Eros, it's the matriarchal approval and the phallic gaze. Um,
Hmm.
but everything is pointless without the Eros.
Hmm. Okay. And that's maybe where we stop, hey? That seems to be the natural conclusion. Come and do your course. Or maybe you want to just say to conclude this conversation, and why what could people get out of your course? Like, why would people sign up for your course, and
Yeah.
what would the outcome, what can they learn besides what we were talking about all these things, but
Yeah, I
just
mean,
a final sort of plug for the course maybe.
yeah. So the final plug would maybe be like, if you're curious to, get a map and a worldview that really honors both the feminine and the masculine, uh, because there's a lot of discourse and maps around this where I feel, either forgets the phallic gaze, either forgets the matriarchal approval, doesn't understand Eros. So it's yeah, to really get a worldview, a sense making that really honors all of the different elements of the masculine and the feminine is my intention. Of course, in 10 years, I'll probably, there's gaps. But this is my deep intention, and I think I at least have some threads that are important in this. So there's that, and then also, if you're curious about this true feminine, I mean, I think that's my main question. So, like, if this true feminine leadership has been lost, what is true feminine leadership? Like, what is the mature version? And both philosophically or, map wise, but also to get a taste of it. And it's, to me, like that meeting of true feminine leadership and true masculine leadership is the most epic thing we can experience as humans.
Okay. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been great.
Me too, Andrew.
Thanks so much. Perhaps it's a conversation I feel like needs to be continued every time we have it. So I hope we can
Yeah,
talk again.
that's great. That's why we have the course.